What up, chuds, and welcome to my second ever video. I'm Jimmy Cobson, and today we are doing my first ever public election prediction for the 2024 election. And I waited because I had a feeling Biden wasn't going to stay in. I was right. So we've got Trump and Kamala. Kamala's looking most likely to be here. Before I begin with the actual election prediction itself, if you could please like this video, subscribe, that'd be great. I'm looking to make a career out of my content creation, and any bit of support will go a long way in the future. Before I actually start filling in the map, though, I want to explain my margins. I use 5 colors instead of 4 colors, but both my first pick and the second part of the gradient are both safe. It's just a way for us to better visualize just how partisan each state is going to vote in this election, because I think that's a pretty useful little tool. Because if you have Texas and Wyoming being both safe, it's kind of misleading because Wyoming is significantly redder than Texas. With that out of the way, let's start with the safe Democratic states. That is going to be, and territories, you could say. That'd be D.C. It's going to be Maryland, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Delaware. I think this is going to be a bit closer, just because if we look at the state itself, right? Wilmington it's an industrial zone, and so there's the chance that Trump brings the state down quite a bit from where it was in 2020. Now, do I think this is going to make the state like competitive enough to be put on people's radars? No, but I do think that it's going to be significantly more competitive than Maryland, and especially Massachusetts, Rhode Island, or DC. Next up is New Jersey, which is another state that Trump is probably going to do a lot better in. He's got South right here that is really white working class area. And then he's got the greater New York area, which we're seeing slowly shift towards the right. On top of that, he's campaigning a lot in neighboring Pennsylvania. You know that's going to have some spillover in the Garden State. As a result, I still think New Jersey is a safe Democratic state, but it's not rock solid like Massachusetts, Rhode Island, or Maryland. Next up is Connecticut. I also think this is a state that Trump will make some good gains in. We have that competitive House race in this area, and we have a bunch of room to grow, especially, because there's this little part that's part of the New York metro area. The problem with any Republican hopes in Connecticut is that it's one big suburb, and given that it's Hartford, Providence, and Boston all having some suburbs in Connecticut, it's going to be difficult for us to really get a significant enough hold on the state regardless. I do think it's going to be like 14 or so in favor of Kamala, whatever. Next up is New York. I also think the state's going to be a lot more competitive than in years past. For starters, what Lee Zeldin showed us is that there is a workable roadmap for a conservative Republican victory in the state. He ran up the margin in the city. He got a bunch of suburbanites to vote for him, and he even built on Trump's margins in the rurals. I think in a couple of years, maybe like 6 or 8 years, we're going to see New York turn into a battleground state. But for right now, I'm going to leave it as safe Democrat, but I guess not solid. Yeah, that's what I'm going to call it now. This is safe. This is solid. Next up is Vermont. Solid Democrat. What do I need to say? Trump probably wins. I believe this is Essex County up here, and does slightly better than in 2020. But ultimately, he's not. We're not cracking this state. The state is just way too isolated from the rest of the country to really, give us a real shot at winning, unless you're Phil Scott, in which case you're not even a Republican. I've also got Maine's first. I think that this is going to be a pretty, it's usually a high turnout district. I think the turnout's going to be significantly lower this time around, with a bunch of progressives being pissed off that Kamala supports Israel. And she's a broadly neoliberal figure who probably will not deliver upon them a lot of their preferred economic agendas. Going over here, you have Illinois. Illinois is another state that I think is going to be more competitive, but not competitive enough to even be in the on the battleground. Trump's making some inroads with young black men, and we'll see if that has any real impact on Cook County and the neighboring suburbs. There's a bunch of farmers down here who don't vote as much as maybe they should, and as a result, you'd see Trump building up on his margins downstate. But other than that, yeah, Illinois is a safe Democrat state, but not solid. Next up is Colorado. I would categorize this one as well as safe, but not safe. It is. This is the anti-Florida. You know, if Florida was the former swing state that became a Republican state due to appealing Republican policies, Colorado is the former swing state that became a Democrat state due to Democrat policies that turned out decently well. Though most of that could be attributed to Hickenlooper being somewhat fiscally conservative, and as a result, lowering the state's taxes while also being a social liberal. Next up is Hawaii. A lot of people here are pissed off at the Biden administration, and with Tulsi Gabbard being, she's a decent name out here. I think if she actually goes out and stumps for Trump in Hawaii, the state could be maybe within like 11 if we're very, very lucky. But still, yeah, this is it's safe, but it's not completely rock solid, though it's teetering on the edge of being solid. It's just that it's not the most favorable circumstances statewide for Democrats going into this year. They're going into this election. Up next is Cali. This is another state that the right is really making gains in. We flipped Orange County in 2022, and we're looking to retain most, if not all, of our down ballot House seats in the state. And there is like a 1% chance that Garvey actually flips the Senate race here, which would be completely, totally epic. So yeah, we got a Cali right here. It's not really swingy, but it's surprisingly becoming more elastic. Next up is Oregon. The rules just don't have enough people in here to be able to outvote Portland, and even though Portland's going to have a much lower turnout because I doubt all the Antifas are going to be turning out for Kamala like they did for Biden in 2020. It's going to be a much trimmer margin. I also have Washington as safe Democrat, though I think that we have a decent shot at flipping the governorship. Reichert is a very unifying figure. He's one of those moderates like Lee Zeldin who doesn't just betray the party and actually, is on our side, but also takes a more measured approach. As a result, he'll be able to probably energize turnout for himself. And if people are excited to vote for Reichert, maybe they might be able to hold their noses for Trump. But as a result, I think Washington's going to be like D plus 12, D plus 13, that kind of state. Yeah, so this is the safe Democrat states. Now for the safe Republican states. Alabama, Mississippi, none of these states are ever leaving the GOP in my lifetime, unless you're like running against Roy Moore. Same goes for this one, and also this one. I don't care what people say. South Carolina, I don't see how it becomes more competitive. The Dems had their shot with flipping it in 2010 with Vincent Shaheen against, honest, ironically, Haley, who ran as this electable candidate, only won by 4.5 points. This is a state that, no, I just don't see how Democrats are able to really build on what little they have statewide. Oklahoma as well. I'm going to rate Florida as safe. It's not exactly in that solid territory yet, but it's getting there. We got Jacksonville, we got the Panhandle, we got everything going on for us in the state. Democrats are done here, just like Republicans are done in Colorado. Same goes for Texas. I've been seeing it swinging back in the other direction. We've made huge gains down here. We have potential for growth in El Paso, and the suburbs of the state are not as trending leftward because of the culture war policies of certain members of the Texas GOP, which we are very thankful for because they've been causing a lot of these upper middle class white liberals to flee to Colorado. Next up, we got Kansas. This state is going to be slightly more competitive than the rest of the red states, but it's not going to go for Kamala. Actually, scratch that. I'm just going to rake it as solid. With the national environment, I doubt it's going to really go. It's going to be going to be more competitive than like South Carolina or something like that. Next up is Missouri. We got this state has moved really, really goodly in our direction. And it's not looking like Dems are going to be able to contest it. I know Lucas Kuntz is trying to pick up that Senate seat. He's going to fail miserably. Next up, Indiana. What is to say about this place? It's ours. We're not losing it. Ohio and Iowa. These are two kind of Midwestern former swing states that have transitioned into solidly Republican ones. Yeah, we ain't losing either one of these. In fact, Brown is done. Next up, we got Maine's second. I think this one, we're going to get more turnout. Trump has a lot of his base up here. This state is very demographically favorable to Republicans. And I think that with lower turnout down here, we might just see a surprise. Wait for that prediction, though. Next up is Nebraska. First, third, at large, all hours. This one I'll fill out later, but you know how it goes. The Dakotas, yeah, like hell, Kamala is going to contest either one of these. Same with Wyoming, unless she like flip flops on every issue and like turns into like freaking Dave Freudenthal, which is not going to happen. Idaho, I've heard people saying, "Oh, Boise's getting big." It's just not big enough to do anything. Next is Montana, and for my man, right? My homie, Tester is done. I think that we can also say that Tester is in fact done on this channel. Anyway, we got Utah. Utah is going to Trump. I know there's some anxiety about the state shifting left, but it's just not that time yet, especially with the national environment. Alaska, we're going to win it by like 12 or so. It's something to keep an eye on, but I'm convinced that the state is just weird and sometimes has weird results, like Hawaii in 2004. That was Alaska 2020. And surprise, surprise, Nevada as a safe Republican state. The polling is just too good. I understand it oversamples Republicans, but I still think if it's like an R+2 sampling error, we win the state by like 10 with how some of these polls are going. This is a state that Democrats may never be able to contest on a presidential level again in maybe around like 10 years or so, unless they really clean up their act and try to revitalize the Reed machine. But Nevada is looking like it's going in our direction. So now we are at 225 to 191, and it's time for the battleground. Um, the only no, actually no, we don't have any likely Democrat states. So let's just go to likely Republican states. It's going to be Arizona. We are picking up a lot in the state as a whole. And I think that even though the Maricopa County trends in the long term are not looking good for us, that polling, though, so good. We don't underperform like that. Never have. Doubt Trump will. Next up is Georgia. I'm convinced this state was a fluke in 2020 and the Senate race in 2022, as the rest of the states in 2022 went our way. This is a state that Democrats are probably, they held on to it briefly, and now it's going to go back in our direction. Think of it kind of like Indiana in uh, 2008 and the years surrounding it, where they held that Senate seat up until 2019. That's what Georgia's going to be like again. Next up, North Carolina. This state's gone for the Dems. We've got probably the best statewide GOP, and now we got Michael Whatley running the RNC. North Carolina, we got some shifts right here with black voters. The suburbs are much more conservative than, say, Illinois. Yeah, it's not looking good for Democrats. Next up is Michigan. This is a state that, because of Vance, Trump's going to do excellent with union voters. Well, at least do better. He'll get a bunch of them in the palm of the hand. He'll get some pickups in the Detroit area, and he might be able to stem some of the bleeding in Grand Rapids. As a result, Michigan is likely R. Next up are the leans. I got lean Democrat, Nebraska second. This place, that's where the insurance companies are. I don't like it, but you gotta live with it, I guess. Then we got, actually, yeah, that's the only lean Democrat state or place. And then got our lean Republican areas. That's going to be Wisconsin and Pennsylvania. Wisconsin, I think we have the lowest ceiling of the big three right here. There's just so many people in Madison that, well, we probably won't be able to win landslides ever again. But we might be able to pick up the state. I'm thinking the state goes to us by like 2 or 3. And then we got Pennsylvania, which I think we're going to win by like 4. We're gonna pick up some seats, or not seats, some voters in Philly as well as in the greater Pittsburgh area. We're definitely flipping a lot of guys up here, and Erie's probably flipping back to us, as well as the T itself. So there's still a little bit of room to grow. Up next for the lean states, I have New Mexico, lean Democrat. This is a state that, because it has a lot of Latinos, I think Trump can make a good play for it. If Trump gets the state like within 4, which is what I'm predicting, Heinrich might lose his Senate race to Nella Dominici, and I would love that. And finally, we have the last lean state being New Hampshire. I think Ayotte wins the governorship, but I don't know if Trump can pick up the state on the presidential level. It's just not looking good for us. And now we have the 3 states I'm predicting to be the most competitive. Those are going to be Maine at large, Minnesota, and Virginia. And I think all 3 barely go Republican. Minnesota first. The Arabs in the Twin Cities not liking Joe Biden's Israel policy. Plus, Donald Trump's a lot to gain up here, a lot to gain over here, and a lot to gain in the Minnesota driftless area. As a result, I think he barely ekes out a win to be like 0.6%. Virginia, I think Trump wins by barely under 1%. And the reason for it is that he can replicate a lot of Youngkin's strategies. If Youngkin actually campaigns for Trump, that's going to be even better. He'll pick up a ton of votes just in the rules of the state. He'll also make gains in Virginia Beach and possibly some of the outer suburbs of Nova. As a result, I'm predicting Tilt R, Virginia. And finally, we got Maine. The demographics of this state are looking really, really good for us. And I think that with depressed progressive turnout in Portland and an energized Trump base up north, we will be able to eke out a victory here. This is probably going to be the closest one. I'm predicting like 0.3% margin. And with that, this is my first prediction of this cycle. If you liked this video, feel free to comment, subscribe, share it with a friend, and peace out, chuds.